The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
Hello. Welcome back to another Existential Crisis Hotline. I've got something really cool to show you. Let's see, I'm trying to find which part is which. So I found this when I was moving hay in our hay barn. It's a snake skin. You can see the head right there. That's where it came off his head. Look at that. And check it out. There's even more to it. So if I put it together, look at that thing. I think there might even actually be more. It's kind of hard to tell if that's the end or not. Might be. Might be the end. There might be a little bit missing because when I found it, it was kind of like under a ledge, sort of like where the bottom of the barn meets the dirt. So I was only able to get, there was a little piece I think stuck underneath it, I think, but look at that thing. Isn't that cool? I don't know what it is. I'm assuming it's probably like a rat snake or something because it's so long. I thought it was pretty neat. It looks kind of like rat snake. I mean, look at that. I don't know if it can focus or not. Let's see, there you go. That's the top of him, and there's the bottom. It's not cool. It's just the skin. Like, obviously he shed, or it, I don't know if it was a male or female, but it shed its skin. And I happened to find it. That was pretty cool. Okay, so let's see what we're doing tonight. I got this new book in the mail. I haven't read it yet. It looks pretty cool. Dark Eon by Joe Allen. Forward by Steve Bannon? I wonder if that's the Steve Bannon. It wouldn't surprise me. Seems like it. Talking about Wall Street, Davos, probably. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. Talking about transhumanism. It says transhumanism is the great merger of humankind with the machine. At this stage in history, it consists of billions using smartphones. Going forward, we'll be hardwiring our brains to artificial intelligence. So that looks pretty cool. But I was flipping through it. Oh, look, it happened again. That's weird. I just randomly opened it, when I was checking it out when I got it. And I opened to this page, which I happened to open again to the same page. And look, they're talking about the Raelians, like we talked about on a previous stream. And also says Falun Gong, which I'd heard of before, like that's some kind of cult in China that they're trying to suppress. It says, given their mistrust, talking about Falun Gong, given their mistrust of extraterrestrials, the practitioners of Falun Gong aren't technically a UFO cult. I guess this section is about UFO cults. However, interdimensional ETs do play a major role in their belief system. As articulated by founder Li Hongzhi, the cosmos is a vast web of gods, Buddhas, and animistic spirits. This includes alien life forms. It's kind of weird. I didn't know anything about that. They talk about Heaven's Gate. What else? Scientology, obviously. The Nation of Islam. That's like the Black Islam movement in America, I think. And says they claimed a circular mother plane flown by black men was all one word, black men, was hovering beyond Earth's orbit. These black men had built their apparatus in Asia during the interwar period. Then they flew off to live in space, leaving white folks to kill themselves in World War II. And that eventually they would descend and destroy white America. Interesting. Maybe that's what's going on. Oh, what? It talks about Francis E. Deck. Worldwide communist gangster computer god. Huh. What do you know? That's weird. I feel like this is just a play-by-play of my last 5 or 10 streams. Interesting. Yeah, interesting stuff. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, but it looks pretty cool. But I was thinking about looking into this Falun Gong thing. We might start there, just kind of see where it takes us, see where life takes us tonight. Come with me on a journey through time and space. Let's see. Chrome. Yeah, okay. Falun Gong. A spiritual movement. Okay, I'm going to go to the Wikipedia, because that's where all the truth is at. Whoa! What's up with the... What is up with the swastika stuff? Although I guess it's like a... Maybe it's like the backwards one. The Great Dharma Wheel. Huh. It's a new religious movement. Its global headquarters is in New York. All right. Emerged from the Qigong movement, combining meditation, Qigong exercises, and moral teachings rooted in Buddhist and Taoist traditions. I mean, I feel like you got to choose one, Buddhist or Taoist. I really don't see how they're compatible, but I don't know. What do I know? While initially supported by some government agencies in China, Falun Gong's rapid growth and independence from state control led several top officials to perceive it as a threat. Okay, but I want to know what they actually believe. Beliefs and practices. Teachings of Falun Gong. Spirituality, ethics, science, metaphysics. Based on the principles of truthfulness, benevolence, and forbearance. There we go. Let's see. Truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Okay. Meditative exercises to purify and transform one's body. Goodness and unconditional compassion towards others. All right. I don't see what it really has to do with aliens. I don't see why they're such a threat. Maybe they just don't accept the authority. Qigong. Examining the evolution, the meaning of space and time, and the mysteries of the universe. Doesn't seem like there's so much there. So they got these meditative exercises. There's nothing really new though. Teleology. says that human life is not created in ordinary human society, but in the space of the universe. Okay, I can understand that. It says that the universe is benevolent to begin with and embodies the characteristics of those three principles. When a life is created, it is assimilated to the characteristic of the universe. However, eventually a web of relations developed and selfishness came about. Gradually, the level of beings was lowered until in the end they reached this level of human beings. I would say there's some truth to that. The purpose of being human is to practice cultivation and return to the original true self. That's kind of cool. Humans were originally gods of some sort who lost their status as life became complicated and they engaged in immoral behavior. Presumably, humans can redeem themselves through cultivation and regain their divine status. But that's like an interpretation. The main spirit. Okay. I mean, it doesn't really give you a lot of transformation in higher dimensions. Special powers connected to apparent higher dimensional realities, which it says exist simultaneously and in parallel to the human dimension. Supernormal powers are a byproduct of moral transcendence, are never sought after or to be employed for selfish intentions. Cycle of rebirth. The spirit is locked in the cycle of rebirth known as samsara due to the accumulation of karma. What is samsara again? It's just the world cycle of rebirth, okay. Oh, also known as, right? This is a negative black substance that accumulates in the body. It's the reason for suffering, what ultimately blocks people from the truth of the universe and attaining enlightenment. Once you pay off your karma, yeah, sounds like another trap. I have to pay off my bad deeds. But it's all just kind of like you as an individual can achieve some state and you can get out of the trap. But it's still missing the point completely. I'll show you another example of that. Let's see, Catherine Austin Fitz. I was kind of surprised she was saying this, so I'm going to play a little bit of this one because I think you might be surprised. If you know who Catherine Austin Fitz is, she's always talking about the global financial system. And she got really popular kind of starting around COVID or maybe before then, probably around that time. I remember because I was watching, I'm trying to think if I found her stuff and then I found Zone 23 by CJ Hopkins, or if it was the other way around. No, I think it was I listened to her and then she mentioned this book, and if you haven't read Zone 23, it's really good. By CJ Hopkins. It's kind of a sci-fi. Yeah, it's like cyberpunk-ish, dystopian. Pretty good book. And let's see what she has to say, because I was kind of surprised she was going there. Because normally she talks about the digital control system, the elites, financial resets, stuff like that. But I was kind of surprised to hear her go this far with the point. And I was also kind of surprised some of the stuff she didn't know about. So either she's feigning ignorance or she really didn't know, which would be surprising, like very surprising. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Then I'll give you some more of my perspective on it. But I'm going to play this.
Farrell and I did a great 2-hour interview called Who is Mr. Global? Mm-hmm. And we went through every different hypotheses.
What do you mean? Can you define Mr. Global?
It's the committee that runs the world. So
Okay.
There's a committee at the top that makes all the big decisions. And my nickname for it is Mr. Global. So the question is, who is Mr. Global and why is Mr. Global doing what he's doing? Because when I look at a situation, I like to put myself in somebody else's shoes. Like if I was Danny and I was doing this, what would it look like from my point of view? And so I want to put myself in Mr.
Yeah.
Why is Mr. Global doing this? You know, what's Mr. Global's point of view? So anyway, so Joseph and I went through and did who is Mr. Global and why is he doing what he's doing? So we went through all the theories, but some of my favorite comments on the internet is they'll say, well, she worked at the White House and, you know, she knows, so she's not telling us. It's like, no, everybody at the White House is not sure.
That's an interesting comment. Like, they're not sure. Right? And that's going to tie into another point. I'm going to pull up that clip too so we can look at that. But it kind of ties into another point that I was looking at, which I find a very interesting point, and I agree with. They don't really know. There's so many layers, and then it's going to tie into some of the UFO stuff also, but I'm going to pull that up in a second. I'm going to continue playing this for now.
Who's your best guess of who Mr. Global is?
I think you have intergenerational pools of capital, and right now they are over influenced by occult. So
Occult.
So I think you have interdimensional intelligence, which is operating demonic intelligence.
Interdimensional demonic intelligence.
Yeah. Yep. So
Somebody in the background goes, wow. And I like how Danny Jones acts like what was it? Interdimensional demonic? Like he's not heard this shit before. It's kind of weird.
I think this thing about good and evil is real. And
See, that's the key point, which is that good and evil is real. I'll come back to that.
I can't find it anymore. I found it once. There were in the 30s, a British physicist got up and said, you know, we are being manipulated, but from other dimensions by intelligent beings from other dimensions. So I think, you know, if you study Christianity and you read the Bible, you're dealing with both divine intelligence and demonic intelligence. And I think too much of the leadership has gotten deeply involved in the occult and demonic kinds of intelligence.
Wow.
So
What was that? Like, he's like, never heard this before. Like, come on, dude. I've seen him interview Jason Giorgiani. Like, what are you talking about? And lots of people that talk about this shit. It's just so disingenuous. It's kind of weird. Well, let me just see what else she says.
I read a book and I have no idea. So I've tried to find every theory to explain the paranormal stuff. So I'm not telling you this is true, but I just finished reading a book called Final Event by Nick Redfern. I don't know if you've ever read it.
I haven't heard of that. Final Event, Nick Redfern. Roswell UFO conspiracy. It's like she's just finding out about this stuff. Final events. Stories, UFO, flying saucer. What if the millions of people are still wrong? What if the UFO phenomenon is much darker and far more ominous origins? The Collins elite. The group believes that our purported alien visitors are in reality deceptive demons and fallen angels. All right.
And he describes it's a exploration of a group of military intelligence in the United States called the Collins elite.
Oh yeah, I've heard about the Collins
Yeah.
elite. Yeah.
And they
So he's heard about the Collins elite, but he's surprised about her saying that there are interdimensional demonic intelligences. Like, okay.
came to believe that the ET phenomena was a demonic phenomena. It was not people from another planet. It was demonic
It was
intelligence.
biblical stuff.
Right. Right. And one of the things he discovered was that, or the Collins elite apparently discovered, is in many sort of ET abduction events, if you called on Jesus Christ, it would stop.
What?
Yeah. That's what he reported. And he strikes me, I don't know anything about him, but it struck me as someone who was trying to do a faithful job of simply reporting what they found.
You know, there's a lot of folks in the intelligence community that publicly state how they believe that the whole UFO phenomena is like this biblical thing. How it's angels and demons, and these things can be angelic entities, and
Hey, Sandro. I just saw you in the chat. I don't know how long you've been watching, but Captain Austin Fitz basically thinks that the UFOs are demonic entities.
like literal, like ground, like legitimate people in the intelligence community, whether they're still active or retired or whatever, that have been on podcasts that state they
So
believe
I
this.
am sure that all of that stuff is happening. So I think we are dealing with demonic and angelic forces in our world, and that's interdimensional intelligence. So the Bible calls it, demons and angels. Other people call it fifth dimension or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think
Fifth dimension. That's gonna be quite relevant later. I've got a really cool video to listen to in a bit.
we're absolutely. And I will tell you what I think is the most important thing to understand about the universe. So write this down. This is my favorite. My favorite new book is A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple.
Oh boy. A New Science of Heaven, Robert. Plasma physics. Plasma, the most abundant state of matter in the universe, is the physical basis for many spiritual experiences, bridging the gap between science and mysticism. Biophotons, bioplasma. We're already at the 11th. Yeah. We're already way past number 5, lady. Let's see, where was I?
Oh yeah.
99%.
So basically, she's saying that the universe is alive. There's bioplasma, and okay, let me get to this part.
Once you understand that, it's so ridiculous. Only a demonic intelligence would come up with that plan.
Huh.
Right?
Have you noticed this recent phenomena of, and there's been articles written about it, of essentially a lot of big shots in Silicon Valley are mapping Christianity now onto everything that's going on in Silicon Valley. There's a new church in Silicon Valley that everyone's going to. Peter Thiel and the head of this company called Y Combinator are, Peter Thiel is a famous billionaire gay Christian, and the guy from Y Combinator is a big devout Christian.
Billionaire gay Christian. Remember that thing in like Sesame Street when they'd be like something like, one of these things just doesn't belong. I don't know if that was Sesame Street or something else. Yeah, one of those things doesn't belong.
And they're holding these big conferences, and all these folks in Silicon Valley seem to be now converting to Christianity, going to church, and it's just really interesting to me, because Silicon Valley is historically known for being like anti-religion, right? Like it's not been a typical religious part of the world in history. These people are, a lot of people developing tech and developing, these social media platforms, transhumanism, and
I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it? How is she researching the digital financial system and has no idea that Peter Thiel and all these Silicon Valley people are totally getting into Christianity and all that? Like, he was literally going and doing interviews about the Antichrist and doing lectures on it. How is she not... It's like a form of cognitive dissonance, I think. Because clearly she's kind of coming from a Christian thing, because she's saying that the government people or whatever who are in the UFOs is all about demonic entities, and if you read the Bible, angels and demons. So it's like she's having some kind of cognitive dissonance right now, where she's like, hold on, how can they be Christian, but I'm Christian, but they're doing the demonic shit?
Yeah, there's been a lot of articles. There was an article in the New York Times that came out, I think the New Yorker. And it's really interesting to me that somebody like Peter Thiel would be somebody who's, very much tied up in the military industrial complex, the intelligence
I would say
community.
that there is a non-alignment between the teachings of Jesus Christ and what Peter Thiel and his companies are doing.
Yeah.
So,
But I it makes me wonder, though, why somebody like Peter Thiel would be so invested in promoting Christianity in Silicon Valley.
I wonder.
I don't know. I would need to understand a lot more.
I wonder if it has
I think you need to understand Christianity a lot more.
something to do with trying to bolster Christianity in the United States, or sort of revive Christianity in some sort of a national security aspect.
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that there has been so much financial fraud and corruption that you have a real breakdown in productivity in the general population. And so,
Something isn't adding up about her. Why does she just skip past that point and not be like, wait, you're telling me these Silicon Valley people are totally like into Christianity and forming churches? Like, can you tell me more about that? Like, no, I'd have to probably know more about it, but not right now. Let's go back to the financial stuff. There's something weird there.
there is a vested interest if you don't want to depopulate everybody and getting everybody to be productive, and they're not going to be productive unless they believe in morals and have morals. So, I mean, our problem, the reason the unipolar model failed,
They're not going to be productive unless they have morals. Peter Thiel is quite productive.
in my opinion, is we're not agreement capable. And the leadership is not agreement capable, but now the message is the population, you don't need to be agreement capable. Mm-hmm. And when a complex society depends on the rule of law, or at least the appearance of the rule of law, you take away the ability to be agreement capable and the society fails.
How do you take away the ability? I mean, I guess I have to agree with her on a certain level, though. That is the issue. We're not capable of agreeing because none of us are in physical reality. Like, we're in our minds. That's the problem. We're just totally in our minds. We're not here in physical reality saying like, okay, I'm a physical being and there's physical problems in this world and we should learn to cooperate and value each other equally as physical beings. Problems are solved and we could actually agree on those things. But when you have this whole dimension of your mind, which that's the thing, is like she's saying, oh, we're not agreement capable. But then you want to talk about demons and angels and all this other shit and the fifth dimension and all this shit. And then also, okay, it doesn't add up either because she's saying that the teachings of Jesus don't align with Peter Thiel. And in the Bible, they talk about angels. But then she's complaining that the Collins elite think that the UFOs are demonic. So is she on the side of the Collins elite? I need to go back.
Reading a book called Final Event by Nick Redfern. I don't know if you've ever read it. Mm-mm. And he describes it's a exploration of a group of military intelligence in the United States called the Collins elite.
Oh yeah, I've heard about the Collins elite. Yeah,
and they came to believe that the ET phenomena was a demonic phenomena. It was not people from another planet. It was demonic intelligence.
It was biblical stuff.
Right. And one of the things he discovered was that, or the Collins elite apparently discovered, is in many sort of ET abduction events, if you called on Jesus Christ, it would stop.
What?
Yeah. That's what he reported. And he strikes me, I don't know anything about him, but it struck me as someone who was trying to do a faith.
I don't know. Something's really off with that. It's very weird. Very weird to say the least. Okay, so let me go on to this other one, which I thought this guy's take was quite interesting. I'm going to play a little bit of this. The hidden reason governments don't want to disclose UFO reality.
If I had to guess, I think one reason governments are reluctant to disclose UFO reality is because they don't understand it. And that point has been made ad nauseum, but I think it kind of misses a very important...
Which, even if you take the perspective that they trying to stay in the center of the camera. Even if you take the perspective that maybe they all think it's demons and aliens, like that would make sense. They don't understand it.
Important aspect of what it means to not understand it. I think those pockets of governments that have really learned as much as there is to know about UFOs and crash retrievals, they recognize that this is not purely random. This is not like some kind of animal species that is going about its day and we're watching from afar. That it's far more likely that these intelligences are engaging humanity in ways that they don't have any frame of reference for. They don't know how to connect the dots. And I think that instills a lot of fear, and I can understand that. Like, for example, this phenomena has been here a long time. Some believe since the dawn of time. But whether it's been here for 80 years or it's been here for tens of thousands of years, it's bizarre how it engages in a way in which we observe it enough that it enters the zeitgeist and we talk about it. But it evades becoming a scientific fact, at least in the public domain. And governments may look at that and say to themselves, how is this possible? Why are they doing this? And they just might think that, well, we don't understand the phenomena. And they may even think we don't know how the phenomena could or might respond to disclosure. So we're just going to play it safe and never facilitate a scientific, epistemologically strong proof from emerging in the world, because they don't know what would happen if that were to occur. Imagine this.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about it in the context of like a game theory type thing, I think that seems like a reasonable possibility, that just as much as the general public doesn't understand what's going on, probably a lot of the people in government probably don't either. It's like, I think we have this sort of assumption that, oh, there's somebody up there and they really know, but they're also just human beings that have a mind, that were programmed since birth to understand the world in a certain way, and they only have access to the information they're given. Like, you would have to assume somehow there's human beings on the earth that understand the whole story, and that's not true. Like, these people in government, they're just human beings. They don't know what's going on. So I think there's a kind of a reasonable likelihood that the way this guy is explaining it probably is true to a large degree. They don't really, and that doesn't discount that maybe there are, let's assume UFOs are a real thing for a moment. And let's assume that at some level, in some point in history, some governments have recovered pieces of UFO technology and they've kind of studied it and reverse engineered things, or observed it and just figured out, that's an interesting possibility. I wonder if we could do something like that. So then maybe there's a level within governments where they are working on things that are like more advanced technologies, but that doesn't mean they understand what's really going on or where those things come from or any of that, assuming any of it's real in the first place.
8 billion human brains are now fixated on flying saucers, non-human intelligences.
I don't know about
When
that.
before they didn't really think of it at all, or very little, except, the small UFO community. And so if UFO...
Well, I don't know about 8 billion, but definitely seems like a lot more people are focused on it and talking about it. And that's why I've been talking about it so much lately, is just because not that I'm so much interested in it, because it's really irrelevant. And I'll talk more about why I say that in a little bit, but clearly there is a growing awareness of it. And again, going back to what I was talking about the other day about that movie, the Disclosure Day with Steven Spielberg that's coming up. Yeah, well, why do you say that, Kate? That's literally what I was going to say, but I don't know if you were going to make the same point. But anyways, what I was going to say is just that point of like, whether a lot of people are thinking about it or not, they're literally about to release this giant movie by Steven Spielberg, and they're definitely going to make everybody aware of it. So if what he's saying is true, that they don't want people to think about, well, okay. The other side of it would be you can frame the way people think about it through a big movie. So, he's kind of this guy's making the point of they don't want like an actual real scientific exploration where it's like an accepted thing that exists and we should study it and we should get to the bottom of it and really like have observations and compare information. Instead, it's all done in secret and everybody who studies it is kind of labeled as fringe or weird or something. And yet, they're studying it in the government because we've looked at a lot of these now declassified programs where they're looking at this kind of stuff. So clearly the government is actually open to it, but there's no real, they don't have like mainstream universities with whole departments about UFO tech, paranormal activity. What are UFOs? Like really studying it for real. It's always kind of like in a really weird fringe way. Because it gets everyone to focus on the alien intelligence instead of the human intelligence. Yeah, definitely with the movie, exactly. And I saw somebody showed a screenshot of the trailer, which I didn't pick up on, but there's a shot and it's like a child's face, and you see this weird technology thing over its face, and somebody took a screenshot. It's like a 3-fingered alien hand, like touching the child's face, which I didn't notice when I watched the trailer. So clearly, there's an alien aspect to it. I would assume. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but yeah, definitely. Getting everyone to focus on the alien aspect of it, like they're extraterrestrials or beings from another dimension. Yeah, that is weird.
UFO intelligence is highly conscious, as many people say, that consciousness plays a big role. Then what happens when 8 billion human beings' consciousness begins fixating on the enigma? Would that elicit some kind of new behavior from the phenomena itself? Particularly because we could assume, and maybe even safely assume, that the way non-human intelligences engage our world is very intentional. It's not random. This is not like studying an animal species in the Amazon jungle. These are higher intelligences. They seem like they're trying to accomplish something in terms of influencing humanity. So if they're...
Yeah, I think you have a good point, Kate. It's like a... okay. It's like... if we can convince everybody in the world that there is such a thing as a higher intelligence, higher than humanity, which, people already believe in God and so forth, and angels and all that, but it's not something you can really... not everyone accepts it. There's a lot of people who don't accept it, and there's not really a lot of agreement on it. Everyone's got their own version of it. But the alien thing, it's like you can kind of focus everyone's attention and create this point where it's like, no, there really is an actual sort of, in a way, real tangible thing that's a higher intelligence. Actually, now that I think about it, okay. Yeah, wow. If you take Giorgiani, right? Because I was watching this interview with him, and they were making this point about the because he's all about like Prometheus, which is like technology and bringing forth technology and using that to further our just ability to live on Earth or something. And he makes this point that, what was he saying? It was like we should put, okay, from his perspective, the AI as a super intelligence is a way that we can push back against these higher intelligences that are controlling the reincarnation cycle, controlling the Earth, whatever, from another dimension. So he really actually thinks that AI is a great thing, maybe not in the form that it's in right now, but it's like kind of like our collective technology that we can use to sort of throw off our oppressive masters. I mean, I'm serious. I was kind of not really disappointed, just surprised that he was going to go that far with it and really not be able to see through, although I shouldn't be surprised. Because I'm like, dude, do you really fucking think that's what it'll be used for? And now if you tie this back together, like with the points Katie was making about the alternative to human intelligence, imagine if the disclosure stuff is managed in a way where it gets everybody to believe, oh, dude, okay. Yeah, I'm just connecting the dots here. Okay, let me see if I can connect it here. So Peter Thiel is talking about the Antichrist, and the way he's framing the Antichrist is that the Antichrist is sort of like the one world government, and it's like government regulation that promotes security and safety, similar to how climate change was used, because it plays into our fear of dying and the apocalypse and all that, so that they could impose regulations and basically slow down creativity and innovation. And so he's saying that the Antichrist would be a figure or a group or a government that would do the same thing towards AI. Okay, and then there's a big discussion about this, of people saying like, wow, that's kind of weird. Peter Thiel seems like the guy who would be the Antichrist, and he's saying, oh, the Antichrist would definitely try to slow down the stuff I'm specifically doing. Kind of seems like that's what the Antichrist would do, right? If you assume, okay, they're creating this AI technology to literally surveil everybody and control everybody, and I'll go into that more in a second. But okay, so if you assume that, then now you've got this whole kind of managed disclosure thing. It doesn't feel like it's managed, but it's definitely not organic that suddenly everyone on the internet's talking about it. You got Anna Paulina Luna saying you should read the Book of Enoch, and she's the one that's pushing the disclosure. She's working with the Pentagon to release all these photos apparently of UFOs and stuff that they have. And you've got other people in the government saying they think that they're demonic entities, the Collins elite thing that Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about. So imagine they can create this impression within everybody that there is a real, tangible possibility that there is a higher level intelligence, whether it's in another dimension or whether it's demons or whether it's actual physical aliens that are just super advanced. Let me ask you a question. If you assume those things are really happening, as an average person, you'd be like, what? Like, we got to unite around this. We got to stop these demons, these aliens, whatever they are. So then you've got a group who say, we have the answer. We've created our own super intelligence that can fight against them. Just like what Giorgiani was saying. I mean, I was just like, are you serious, dude? Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising because when you study destiny and you really process the whole picture of it, the whole point is to support you to realize we just have to take responsibility for what's here physically. As human beings, as life forms on Earth, considering all other life. So all this UFO stuff is like a big distraction. And Bernard had this really great blog. Actually, let me see. I think I had it pulled up. Let me see if this is the one. Yeah, I'm going to pull this one up because it's so relevant to all this. Okay, so it's on his blog, Day 140, Paranormal Aliens and True Activism. I'm just going to read through it. It's not very long. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that all information regarding aliens must be viewed as its relevancy to support a practical permanent solution for life on Earth, as anything but such equal solution would distract from reality and cause misdirection of focus. Okay, so just to be clear, this is my starting point in talking about all this stuff. It's not to say, we got to solve the UFO problem. I don't really think you can solve it. And I also think that there's probably a level to which it's highly possible that any of the UFOs that they're still seeing, assuming that they're still seeing them, I don't know if people see them or not, it's literally just a manifestation out of our fucking minds, manifesting in front of us so that we can see it and then we can get excited about it. And it's like, it's all just like a mind thing that's going on, okay? Which doesn't mean I'm skeptical about other dimensions existing or having existed or aliens having existed. I'm not skeptical about that. But in current real time, it's all fucking irrelevant. Because it's not like, oh, here we are as humans creating this world that's really best for us. It's best for everybody on Earth. It's balanced. Everybody has what they need. And then here come these aliens coming around to just fuck it up for us. Okay, that'd be a different situation. That would be a totally different situation. Like, hey, no, we're going to stand up and not allow that. Okay, that might involve fighting. I don't know. I'm just saying as a hypothetical scenario. But that's not the situation. The situation currently is there's a lot of fucking inequality on this Earth. And it does seem like a big fucking distraction so that no actual focus can be applied or could be applied to solving the actual real problems here on Earth of just basic inequality. Because right now, people are making tons of money. Okay, so I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that most of the beings on Earth are extorted and driven to become aliens on the world that gave them life through systems that justify and only allow inequality to exist. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that the visibility of aliens on Earth as those that have no access to equal life opportunities are missed and disregarded by those looking for aliens in the universe. Certainly, mankind being unwilling to take care of its own species will be viewed as a threat to any life, if it exists. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that possessions and profit have alienated man from man, and man from every other living being on planet Earth, causing man to live in self-interest, as if man will never die to face reality for what is being allowed to become of life on Earth. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that instead of mankind being all in as equals on Earth as life, man ensure that every child born becomes an alien visitor on Earth with an alternative consciousness in competition with nature on Earth, causing abuse on Earth of Earth's nature to the extent that places man's consciousness squarely in the realm of pure evil, as evil is that which disregard life and only use life for self-interest. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that to glorify telepathic messages from aliens claiming higher knowledge, while ignoring the knowledge of millions, having no basic life rights or equal access to what the Earth provides freely, indicates a state of mental disease that is being allowed to become a world disease, the disease of ignoring fact while glorifying fiction. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that to focus on paranormal events while the alienation of normal life on Earth is demonized, do not reflect on the mental health of the paranormals as abnormalcy, unstable and abusive, as those with an interest in the unexplained should first explain why life on Earth is not honored as sacred and equal for all. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that life and death are not alien on Earth, and show that there is a consequence designed into existence on Earth, implying that the inhabitants on Earth cannot be trusted with life. Anyone with common sense reason should be able to see this for themselves. I commit myself to show that life on Earth is treated as paranormal aliens, while the imaginary consciousness conjured up in the mind consciousness system is seen as normal, in spite of the overwhelming evidence that consciousness only justify abuse through glorifying itself. I commit myself to show that aliens, if existent and benevolent, would have never turned a blind eye to the mess on Earth. I mean, same thing with God, right? I commit myself to show that the claim of free choice as the basis of planet Earth is invalidated by the fact that life is not freely, equally supported. Because as long as man is subject to a mind that cannot change to what is best for all life, man do not have free choice in fact. I commit myself to show that much attention is given to paranormal events and alien-related claims, yet the evidence of abuse of life on Earth is ignored and conveniently shunted into a category of negativity. while the self-interest in entertainment as paranormal and alien investigation is seen as a positive use of time. Investigate first what is obviously existing as the physical world, and prove dominion on Earth as what is best for all life. And then investigate the universe. Because as long as life on Earth is abused, no human can be trusted with anything. And that's kind of the point I was making back to when we were talking about some of the Giorgiani stuff and the focus on the paranormal abilities development and all that. And I'm like, you know, I would assume there are abilities that we could develop, which you might even consider like extremely supernormal, paranormal, whatever. But they probably go way beyond what anybody thinks of as like telepathy or psychokinesis or shit like that. Like way beyond. I mean, we're actually already doing it. Like the actual physical reality, like Katie was saying earlier, the actual intelligence that's in physical reality is already extremely advanced. It's been fucked with, but it's also advanced in itself. And we have no idea really how any of that works. And we never will know, because we're totally diminishing everything on Earth just to be like a fucking number or a commodity or something to use for self-interest. Just basically for pure entertainment in our minds. Just wasting all of reality for no purpose whatsoever. And if we, and this is something I realized through studying Destiny, is if we would first sort out the problems here on Earth, like the actual obvious ones that we fucking know about, that we can verify, like what are aliens? What are UFOs? Well, we can never know. As we can see, there's no way to figure this shit out. But what do we know for sure? There are lots of children going out without their basic necessities. There are lots of people addicted to drugs, addicted to pornography, in abusive relationships, totally possessed by their mind within all kinds of fantasies and ideas and imaginations and desires to be important, desires to be special. And that all comes down to our education system, and in tandem with the fact that we have an economic system that does not value all life equally. Like, if all life was valued equally, we could sort out our problems so fast. But it would have to be a value that's internalized within us. And instead, the only value that we see is money. Like, I saw this stupid fucking post earlier, and it was like a video of Northwest, like Kanye West's daughter, with two other girls like showing off their weird clothing. And the post was like, the girl on the left has more money than all of Northwest's entire families combined, and they act like she's the little one, like she's just one of Northwest's little friends. And I'm like, they're just fucking human beings who have a fuck ton of money. But even implied within the post was like, isn't it funny how, you know, they just act like she's Northwest's little friend, but she's got more money than everyone she knows combined. I'm like, as if that in itself means like you're important and you're valuable. They're all just human beings. They shit, they piss, they do all the stuff that everybody does, but they just have a lot of money. And we have a money system where we're allowing people just to accumulate tons of money and then not have to, within that, take any responsibility for anyone else. Even though they were gifted with a apparently higher intelligence, higher vocabulary around money and finances or whatever. And it's kind of like, well, no, I deserved it because I worked for it. And it's like, that's such a fucked up definition of value. You know, if you have more abilities, then you have higher responsibility to take care of life around you, especially if you realize like you're actually equal, not just you pretend to be equal. Like, we're actually all equal. And if we allow any point in reality to be something that I wouldn't want to swap places with, there's going to be a problem. That's going to accumulate into consequences. So I just think this is a really cool reminder for everybody as we talk about the paranormal stuff. Because again, my interest in it is just that I always like to look at what's going on in especially the media and just see how it's shaping people's perceptions. Because right now everyone lives in their mind. So whatever information is coming through, that's how people are being directed. And a perfect example of this was COVID. It'd be one thing if it's like, oh, people are just entertaining themselves, it doesn't have any effect on reality. I mean, yeah, I would understand that criticism, but COVID, everybody went into extreme fear, and like, your life changed, my life changed. Like, you couldn't go certain places when you wanted to. It's like you suddenly felt like very restricted and isolated and like confined. And that was nothing compared to what is coming if we do not stand up in this world. That COVID will seem like nothing. So, under the guise of all of this, I really think there's something to this point that a lot of people are putting their focus on aliens and UFOs and all that kind of shit. And it would not surprise me if there was something. And see, the thing is, I don't know how it's going to be expressed. I'm not able to see that. So I can only kind of like imagine different scenarios that are possible. But it really seems like there's going to be some kind of a thing that riles everybody up. You know, like the movie Independence Day, where, and again, I don't want to try to project a certain way it's going to look, because I literally have no idea. But for example, in the movie Independence Day, suddenly apparently these aliens are attacking all these monuments and the White House and all these different things. And so now as humanity, suddenly every country unites together and we're flying our fighter jets together and we're destroying the aliens and everything. And what happens after that? Does humanity go, oh, brothers, why were we fighting each other this whole time? Let us now share the resources of Earth and let us take care of each other. Or do they just go right back to normal politics and shit? So it's like this fantasy thing that, like, no, in a time of need, humanity will come together. It's like pre-programming us that, hey, when there's an external threat, then we come together and we push off, we get rid of this threat. But what happens after that? Do we realize anything? Because if in this scenario, in this Independence Day scenario, there's some kind of perceived external threat, whether it's aliens, demons, I don't know, maybe it'll be presented in a way where anybody can sort of have their flavor of it. Like, imagine it's sort of just a generalized threat that there's some higher intelligences out there. If you want to call them alien or angels, they're angels or they're demons. If you want to call them extraterrestrials, yeah, that's what they are. Or if you want to call them interdimensional beings, then yeah, that's what they are. Like, whatever you want to call it, it's something out there. And we need to really quickly get our act together, humanity. And we shouldn't regulate AI because how are we, as stupid little human beings, gonna battle these super intelligences if we don't have our own? You know what it reminds me of? The movie Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim, right? I don't know if any of y'all saw that movie. I think I saw it with Katie in the theater like a long time ago. Pacific Rim. Yeah, it was like it's almost like sort of a play on the what's that anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion, where it's like you have these monsters that are like aliens. These ones come from the sea. They're called the kaiju, right? And they come from the ocean, and then humanity has to create these giant robots, just like classic anime style, called Jaggers. I don't really remember how they pronounced it. It's such a weird word. Each controlled by two co-pilots whose minds are joined by a mental link. And they have to basically fight these kaiju in the ocean. Basically it's like humanity comes together and now you've got all these different robots that then have to fight the kaiju or whatever. Look, it says go big or go extinct. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out in terms of the media, the news, all that stuff, but that's just what it seems like everyone's being set up for. Something like that. Maybe it's not like an event that happens. Maybe it's just the government starts pushing the idea that, yes, we have seen that there are aliens out there. or demonic entities or whatever you want to call them. Like, we never actually see them. Nothing ever actually happens, but we're just told that it's happening. I mean, just think about COVID. Like, hey, you better stay indoors because there's just bodies piling up. And you like look out the window, you're like, I don't see anything, but you know, it's like, I remember during that time, because I was still going around doing meetings with people and stuff. And I was like, I'll be talking to them like, you know, do you actually know anybody who like got really sick? And this was during the time when it was happening. And they were like, no, like we haven't got sick, but like, my uncle's second cousin-in-law twice removed, he got really sick. Oh, really? Like, was he healthy? No, he had like severe diabetes and he weighed like 500 pounds and they had to take him to the hospital. I'm like, okay, so it's not even anyone, but it would always be like someone's cousin's uncle or something. I'm like, what? Or some really old person or something, you know? And then they, like, what's so crazy about it is we all quarantined. And then they came out with a vaccine later, like after it was already over. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, oh, maybe should we get this now? It'd be like if the aliens came and destroyed the entire Earth, you know, and then like flew away and they were like, you know, we need to do something about these aliens and fight these aliens. Let's build a bunch of robots to fight the aliens. Like, they're already gone, dude. Like, what are you talking about? There's still people brainwashed about all that fucking COVID shit. So yeah, my point just being that it doesn't even have to be a quote unquote real thing that happens. It can just be like the perception that something's out there. And then we just take all the brakes off of AI. So that they can literally create, by all intents and purposes, God. That's what a lot of these people think they're creating. I think that's kind of the point of this book. I guess this is more about transhumanism, but think about, you know, AI embedded into every device that you own. And then even in the future, there's like implants you can get and wearable technology and all kinds of stuff. So you're just constantly connected. Every movement of your body, every word you speak. And it's already kind of like that right now, but it's not all constantly being fed into this AI that also then interacts with you. So imagine when you get to the point where to navigate somewhere, you don't have an app. You just ask the AI to tell you where to go. And it generates in real time, just like, you know, generative AI, a map of where to go. So you're literally just always following the AI. When you're interacting with people, they're saying something to you, your AI is giving you advice about what they're saying. Maybe you're just like, you know what, can you deal with it? And their AI talks to your AI. I mean, read some sci-fi books. Like, it's not that far-fetched to imagine these things. So you get to the point where the people who run the AI companies have like real-time knowledge about everybody on Earth at all times, all your desires, everything. They have to reset the financial system and make it like credit based so that you can get your AI credits as long as you go along. I saw somebody talking about this. It's like, imagine, that's what there's a big discussion right now about UBI. They're talking about UBI and you got both sides of the debate, you know, and people saying UBI is pointless, people saying we're going to have to do UBI. And I saw somebody saying like, it'll be kind of like UBI plus Chinese social credit. So you get the credit if you don't cause a problem. And the thing is, see, and this is the problem with like Catherine Austin Fitts. She's like, it's the demonic entities. It's the people in our government who are evil and corrupt. But the thing is, like, human beings actually can't be trusted. Because everybody's like fucking psychotic in their mind, in a delusion. They're in a fucking mental delusion. So as long as we, as human beings, as individuals, are going to accept having a mental delusion as the primary thing that runs our life individually, then what is manifesting as a total AI control system is inevitable, and from the perspective of those who want to maintain their elite position in society, is necessary. Because they can't allow us to just run around going crazy and doing whatever we want, especially when there's no more jobs. You got to really think about that. When there's no more jobs and everyone has AI, how are they going to explain to us why we can't use the AI to do whatever we want? Like, well, you don't have enough credits. You're not good enough. It's just like recreating the whole concept of spirituality and getting into favor with God all over again here on Earth. I want to listen to some of this because it's actually not that long, and I listened to some of it today, and it's just so clear. Okay, so this is a discussion with Bernard on the terms God and Ascension. Okay, I want to play through this because there's so many really important points. It's in the context of everything we've been talking about for the past week or so on the stream. So we'll listen to it a little bit, and I'll probably stop and give some of my commentary on it as we go.
So let's discuss Ascension and the God delusion. Or let's put it another way. How did God create God's self? This is the way to become God. Okay. In existence a long time ago, beings were getting quite bored. And some of them noticed an interesting thing. No matter what they do, there was no consequence. There was no, although a belief existed of a God or a creator, nobody ever interfered. Beings existed as races and as groups of interest and traveled the universe. And they were born and they died. It's like very much similar to now. So,
okay, on that point, I'm just going to give my perspective on it. So when he says, so you got to think of you got to consider a context of reality before there was any humanity. Okay, before any kind of reality existed in the context of what we understand as human beings on Earth living like human lives. Imagine more of a free-flowing reality, and beings could kind of just do whatever they wanted, and there might have been sort of different groups and different civilizations, so to speak, different types of cultures and so forth. But the important thing is this point, what he says, no matter what they do, there was no consequence. Okay, and then the next important point with that is there was, said, although a belief existed of a God or a creator, nobody ever interfered. So this is an important context because it means at some point, some being or beings realized, no matter what we do, no one ever interferes with what we do. So even though there's some kind of a creator or source that is why we exist, we don't really know, and maybe each group had their own ideas about what that is, but somebody at least noticed, but no one ever there's no thing out there that's clearly interfering with what we do. Probably there's nothing that's ever going to stop us. Okay, so in other words, if you want to consider the rest of what he says, like why would someone think they could get away with it? Would be under the belief that no one's going to interfere. I think a perfect example of this is the current elite on Earth right now. Okay, and obviously it extends even to each of us individually. But if you think about the current elite, they get away, essentially, at least in their life, with lots of heinous shit. And no one, like God never comes down and actually stops them. And no, people have their beliefs. If God did this, God did that. None of that's verifiable. It's all fantasy. It's not real. Okay? God's not coming down and being like, you know what? I'm putting a stop to this. And just like Bernard was saying in that blog post we read, if there were actually intelligent aliens out there that were truly benevolent, they would have put a stop to our bullshit a long time ago. They would have looked at the situation. It's like if you're literally Superman compared to the average person, and you walk by and you see a bunch of thugs beating up an old lady trying to steal her purse, and you're Superman, what would you do? Wouldn't you immediately like just beat them all up and help the old lady and make sure the guys never mess with that old lady again? So if there was actually a truly benevolent force out there, it would have intervened already. And people are so delusional that they think, oh no, one day he's coming back and he's going to do it. Don't you worry. When it gets really bad, I'm like, what's he waiting for? What's it waiting for? So just assume that this creator, as some kind of a being that's benevolent and so forth, does not exist. Then you would feel like you could just get away with anything if you're bored. Okay? When people are bored, they can be destructive, especially when they don't consider all other life as equal to them, right? And valuable. And when you're bored, you just start destroying shit, basically, or you start taking advantage of a situation, okay? So that's just the context I wanted to add from my own perspective of how I'm processing when he's talking about these points, okay? I'm trying to move my picture out of the way. There we go.
No, although I believe existence of a God or a creator, beings existed as races. Nobody ever interfered. Beings existed as races and as groups of interest and traveled the universe. And they were born and they died. It's like very much similar to now. So, a fascinating idea came about. It's like a light bulb that went on in a way. That noticed an interesting thing, that in a way it would be possible to exist forever. But what you have to do to exist forever, that means also to control everything forever, would be that you have to divert everything to yourself, all power. Because if you have all power, you can also direct your own existence. To do that, a fascinating thing was done. A fascinating consideration.
And let me just add another thing. This was something I was I was explaining a few streams ago when we were looking at the points of, I was reading a quote from a Giorgiani book, but it was that point of sort of if you think power actually comes from one place and like kind of goes down on everything, it's actually a very naive or weak view of power. Actually, power is within everything. And what someone who wants to be powerful has to do is to create structures to divert that power to them. It's not there's a source of power that descends on everything and controls everybody. Everybody's participating in a structure, in a hierarchy, and therefore diverting each of our individual powers, so to speak, to one particular source. So this is the same thing he's describing here, but just imagine this happening before there was even any humanity or anything.
What was being noticed was a fascinating occurrence in the universe, where all the planets in the universes were in a way dimensional, meaning call it multidimensional. It was in a way existent similarly to what you would now experience as how you see pictures in the mind. It was like a mind universe.
So the problem was already existent, actually. The problem of you're in a reality where you're not really fully here in reality. You're in a way in your mind, just like you are now. Even though you are here in reality, you're still participating in your mind. And another thing we had talked about previously on the stream was this point of I think it was said differently because I was reading a quote from something, but like this idea of a consciousness, although I would just say it is consciousness, but a type of consciousness that only knows how to take and not how to give. Okay, so imagine beings were already living in that same starting point already. Of I'm not really here in reality to give to all of reality. I'm in a way sort of formed into a similar type of consciousness that we have now. It just may not be exactly directly the same thing, but it's like, imagine a principle of totally believing that you're separate from reality. That will create the fear of not being able to exist forever because you're separate. And you know that you're separate. At least at a very deep level, you know you're separate. So therefore, if you're not separate and you aren't the one that created yourself and are sustaining yourself, you know you're not doing it because you don't know how it's being done. That creates a fear of not existing. So the reason why you would seek all this power for yourself, like he was saying earlier, is to find a way to live forever. It's like, if I can divert all power to me and I can direct that and control that, no harm will ever come to me. Nothing will ever, in any way, at least the belief would be, nothing would ever threaten the integrity of my existence because I'm controlling everything in a way to always make sure that I'm sustained. But to do that, you have to fuck with everything else, okay? Obviously.
But something was happening. It was becoming...
Okay, let me just reload it. It was becoming matter. So I know I interrupted the point he was making, but everything was like very fluid and it was very like mental and very not solid, right? In the way we think of solidity. And so he said the problem was everything was starting to become like matter, like more solid, more dense. Okay, and he's going to explain more. I just wanted to add that context.
But something was happening. It was becoming matter. What is matter? Matter is a relationship between yourself, space, that which is existing, and how it moves, time. That was becoming relative, real, responding to the influence, the input you put into it. That means what was becoming real was programmable. You can give it an input and it'll give you an output. And if you control the input, you control the output.
So if you can imagine for a moment a slightly different context of reality where there's no consequence. It's like you can just float around basically and explore things, but there's never any real consequence. But as things become more materialized, what happens is if you have an input, you can program an input and get an output. So you can start to have a consequence. Like if you program something a certain way, you get an output. It's no longer just a free-flowing anything goes. Okay, so I'm just trying to give you some of my context of how I'm processing that point. But unfortunately, it's like I'm sort of trying to explain it. But to me, the way he's saying it just makes sense also. But I'm also trying to explain it for anybody who might be having potentially like a little challenge processing the point, okay? But imagine everything being very free-flowing, but then realizing at a certain point things are starting to materialize in a way where there actually becomes consequence. Like if you create a certain input, it will create a certain output. So now you have consequences. You have things manifesting, okay? And also this point he makes too is going to come back later of... this point here, matter is a relationship between yourself, space, that which is existing, so all of the material objects, everything, and how it moves in time, right? How it moves is time. Time is literally the measurement of movement. If you think about a clock, it's the measurement of movement. It's the measurement of how things go from one form into another form or into another configuration. And when you see that change, that's how you measure time. So real time, not theoretical abstract time, but actual, in fact, physical time is the movement of things.
What you put into it. That means this, what was becoming real, was programmable. You can give it an input, and it'll give you an output. And if you control the input, you control the output. Obviously, what was the fascinating difficulty was everybody is going to find this out and understand that the input equals the output.
That's a really important point. And it's similar, analogously, to the whole disclosure thing and like what Giorgiani was trying to say in the context of what he was talking about, which is like, man, if it was fully disclosed that everybody could have paranormal abilities and that it's been suppressed, everybody would want to focus on them and learn how to develop them. And suddenly, if everybody was telepathic, you wouldn't be able to hide anything. People would be able to see what's in your mind. There would be no privacy. If everybody could, remote perceive things, like there would be no privacy. There would be no ability to control. The hierarchy would collapse. So this point that he's making here is still a relevant point today. It's the same principle. It's like, okay, if you realized, if you have access to how things work, you don't want to share that with everybody because you're like, well, then everybody would know how it works and everybody could use it. And then they might use it in a way that doesn't just directly benefit me. So I have to control what people understand, right? I have to control the information so that they don't find out what they're capable of. So then I don't have to agree. I don't have to cooperate. I can just control everything because you don't know. You don't know how things work, but I do. So that's the same concept being applied that we're seeing today. And he's saying this problem existed a long time ago. We're just now seeing like a second or third order example of it in our world today.
How do you make sure that nobody finds out that the input equals the output? Okay,
so reality starts materializing more. This point comes up where they start to realize, we can actually program reality. We can program structures into reality as an input, and that can influence how things unfold. And shit, if everybody figures this out, we're going to have to find a way for everyone to agree because I want to live forever. If they start programming reality, that might create consequences. That means I don't get to exist. So you see how like you go into that fear, right? That self-interest. So how do you make sure in this context, remember we're in the context of humanity doesn't exist yet. All beings are in a way sort of still kind of equalized in a certain sense. But then somebody starts realizing, hey, reality's becoming more programmable. How do we make sure that all the other beings out there that exist don't realize this and take advantage of it?
You place them into a reality that is not part of these 3 points: self, space and time. You create a new reality for them, a 4th dimension. You create for them a heaven. You create for them a place to go to where they actually, in going that, which is like ascending, they send their ass somewhere. In doing that, they are actually recreating them into an idea, existing as if they're all powerful, as if they're God, while they're not. While you, that is controlling all of that, you're God. Because you're actually controlling everyone.
In other words, you put them into a simulation. Not necessarily a literal simulation where they're not even in physical reality, but you create a simulation for them to pay attention to. So that they're not actually, I don't want to use the word consciously, they're not in full awareness directly programming reality. they're in another dimension, which he's going to explain further. Well, he says it right here. It's the mind. You create this mind dimension where in your mind, you're doing all these things and you believe all these things about yourself and you're doing all this stuff, but you're never really actually changing anything physically in any way that threatens the control that this particular being or set of beings or whatever wants to put in place. So you just give everybody a distraction to focus on, but you make sure that you're programming the reality so that it goes the way you want. And they're going along with it, but totally distracted at the same time. But they think that they're actually really doing something. They think that they're becoming something amazing. They think they're becoming God and having a godlike experience of reality. And this is going to tie back in a bit to some of the points we were making in the beginning about transhumanism and AI.
How do you do that? Is you create a system that mimics matter.
It's a reflection. Think about it when it means when you say you're created in the image and likeness of God. Likeness means you're something like something. Doesn't mean you are that. And you're created in the image. And when we hear that, we were looking at this last night on the stream, I think. What does it mean, created in the image? We take it to mean I'm a copy. I'm like God. I'm kind of the same as him in a way. But really means is you were put into an image. Like, it's like you're inside of a picture. You're in the image of God. You're in his simulation. You're in his copy of reality. You're not playing in real reality. You're in the image.
The mind. It is a reflection.
A reflection.
And that reflection has an interesting point. It is the reverse. If you look at it, it's like looking in a mirror. Everything is where the one side is the opposite of, you have left and right. Left becomes right and right becomes left. So it's a complete reversal of everything that exists as a projection within which you create yourself. How is that then done?
And this is a really good point he goes into. I just want to add a comment here. Everything is in reverse. Another way of looking at that from this perspective is you think you're, in your mind, you think you're achieving something great. You think you're achieving some enlightenment. You think you're achieving godhood. But in reality, you're diminishing yourself to a point of virtually nothingness. So it's the reverse. So so this being or beings want to control you to take your power, like your creative ability, and channel it for their purposes. So they have to put you in another context where you think you're doing all of that and you think you're becoming something great, but literally you're doing everything wrong. You're doing everything backwards in reverse. So you're diminishing yourself so that you no longer have any access whatsoever to actual will reality. So whatever little access point you have, they can just direct whatever that power would be that you would normally have access to interact with reality. It all comes to that group of beings or being. While you're off in this world thinking that you're becoming something when you're literally becoming nothing.
Fascinating, because when a child is born in this reality, the child do not have a self personified in the mind. That doesn't yet exist. The child is actually here in space and time. Real, powerful, pure. What happens then? A personality, an idea is created within which the child encompasses themselves until all that exists as the human here is just a mind reflection of themselves. Then the mind becomes the reality they are trying to master. How to master that is fascinating, because within this whole process it'll go through an apparent stage of evolution. You will, as you move through your reality, become dissatisfied with what you're experiencing. Then you'll start searching for an alternative. And in that search, it's like already placed in you as a program. You'll go to the next stage. You'll then move from believing mom and dad to believing in God and a religion. Then, when you're dissatisfied with that, you'll start believing in yourself as the reflection as God, which is like Ascension. It's just a short view of your progression, which everybody eventually take. And each of those things will be equated to time, either a coming again, or a new age, or some form of time-related construct. Now, what did the programmers of the input realize? They realized that they could divert all the creative power of every single being into a system and fuel that system. All they have to make sure of is they never step into that system, because they'll lose themselves. So therefore they created what you would call today heaven. From there, they controlled the input of every being born. How did they do that? By seeding it. They also seeded the whole reality as nature. What is a seed? A seed is that which contained the information of that which it would become, isn't it? So if you take the seed of a flower, you can look at the seed, and by the knowledge of the seed, you can say, this seed is this flower, because in the seed is contained the information, the program that will bring forth this flower. That program is DNA as a general description. Obviously, there's a lot more about how it works in terms of its construct, chromosomes, and you name it, the whole story. But for the point of this discussion, it is sufficient to note the following, that all things that is consisting of a seed, and that includes the human. Remember, there's a seed and an egg. Little bugger that swims and then penetrates an egg and then starts to divide according to a program, bringing together two seeds, a male and a female, from which emerged a human. Within that seed is contained the information of what this being will become. Obviously, in its initial stages, as the seeds meet and the being develops, it first gives attention to structure, which is the physical. Within the structure is then contained that which operates as the structure, which is the basic functionality like heart, liver, breath, mind, taste, eating, farting, the whole story. Within that then is the functionality, the program, the construct, the design, which make it possible for the being to interact with other beings. So say the child is born, like we have examples of that, with a family of wolves, and it's a human child. The human child will act like the wolves. Therefore, what was created was a construct within which the child would be given input to fit into the total group of humans, the society, which is the family, through which, and that family became the construct, which
we literally call it the family construct, right?
It's got one primary point of concern. That is control within the society to fit in with the system that is here and that runs within a particular time frame, within a particular space, within a particular application, with a beginning and an end. A fascinating thing was placed into it. By this construct, this mind, this definition of mine, what is mine, who am I, this I am construct, the mind, which was inserted into each being as part of the seed, so that mum can say to the child, I am mum, your name is Danny, say I am Danny. So the I am was born. This I am is a projection, a personification, a mirror, a reflection, which was defined by the being which gives them the assumption, the idea that they are apparently God. While all the while they're only following the seed that was planted.
I mean, this is such a... It might seem a little bit abstract, I don't know. But in reality, you're a physical being. But we say, I am so-and-so. And the I am that we are identifying with is this idea, this mental construction we have of ourselves, not just the actual thing we are. And so if we identified with the actual thing we are and knew that that's what we are and saw every other being as what they actually are, we would realize that we're all actually equal. Or at least that would be one point of realization, that we're equal. But in the mind, because it's not real in terms of what you can imagine in the mind. You can be all kinds of things and beliefs and like ideas, and then those can be in conflict with another person. Instead of, it's just like we're just physical beings here that have to live together. So you create all this extra stuff that gets in the way of just seeing the actual physical equality that we have.
Which made it in a way that people, beings in this reality could not break out from what they were placed into. So, consider this particular seed. Consider the fact that the input equals the output. Then consider the common sense within the current accepted reality. You'll notice a fascinating thing. The mind is actually the fourth dimension. You have yourself, you have space, and you have time. If we all work within the construct of self, space, and time, and we consider everyone equally within ourselves as everyone else also ourselves, because we are all coming from the earth, we're the dust of the earth, so we are one within that, and we consider ourselves as being one from the earth within space and time, we will not harm each other. But when we create a reflection, a deception of ourselves, a point where we are no longer able to see ourselves and everybody else within space and time, we create that as a reflection, as a mirror, as the mind. That is our fourth dimension.
And just on that point, I know you guys haven't read that Prometheus and Atlas book, but I've talked about it a little bit. But he makes this point about... Hold on, let me get my picture back over. Okay, I'm like constantly trying to stay in the frame. In that book, he's making this point about... Remember, we were talking... I think we were talking about it last night, if I'm not mistaken, about like the pigeons. And that discussion with Heidegger about, you couldn't go to the train station from where you're at just through a mental construct. It's like you're going there because you're actually in physical reality. And kind of alluding to developing this sort of, they would call it a paranormal ability to just kind of be in reality and see the actual reality that's there. It's like literally they're trying to escape the mind prison. thinking that it's something that you need to develop in your mind, if that makes sense. Meaning it's like this trap. The whole idea of developing paranormal abilities, psi abilities, and so forth is actually it's a trap, because you're trying to develop the ability to be where you're already fucking at. And it's the mind itself, the mind consciousness system, that is actually the issue, where we develop all these ideas about ourselves. So we're literally disconnecting ourselves from physical reality. We're already actually here. And it's so cool the way he puts it as you have self, space, and time. And then you have a fourth dimension that we call the mind. And that's the thing that separates you from being actually here in physical reality. Like, it's not that you're actually not in physical reality. It's just that you're not really aware of reality, because your total focus is the mind part, the I am part, the consciousness part. I saw this other blog of his where he was making this point about Jesus and how everybody misunderstood when he said, I am the whatever, I am the way, the life, the whatever. And he says that he wasn't talking about the I am as consciousness. He was talking about I as the body. I was like, that's actually a really cool point.
Everyone at the moment believes that is in the New Age that we are ascending to the fourth and the fifth dimension. That's not true. We are already in the fourth dimension. You're actually going through these stages throughout your life. Various ages, the next stage of your existence activate. Age 7. Age 14, age 21, age 28. They normally run in 7-year cycles, within which you go through a process of personification, the acceptance of your personification as an ascended being, as a mind creation, as a reflection of yourself that is untouchable, within which you apparently have choice. And within the fourth dimension, you have no time, because have a look at your mind.
Yeah, okay. A version of yourself that's untouchable. It's like we think we're actually, as our mind, we're safe there. It's like no matter what's happening physically, I'm safe, my mind. Like that part of me, that's the real me. That's the part that's untouchable. But it's literally a diminishment from what you actually are. The only reason you'd be worried about or needing to have some place where you're untouchable is because you realize that your physical is not actually secure, because we don't have a physical system where we all have been programmed not to go into our mind as our identity, but actually understand how our body works and be educated in a way where we see everyone equally, and therefore we don't harm each other. And there'd be no reason to have that separate, untouchable space within yourself. It doesn't mean you couldn't still have a mind where you can make imaginations to plan things out and test things in reality. But when it becomes your identity as who you are, it's like you're totally actually missing the whole point of what physical reality is really about. And again, as Bernard's explaining, it's a specific trap that was created that we would participate in so that we would give all of our real, actual physical power to someone else.
You can think about so many things. Time doesn't influence you in your mind, in your reflection. You're like Superman, the superhero in your mind that can be here and there and imagine all kinds of things. Obviously, what was the fascinating thing was that those that programmed
that point he said about imagine all sorts of things, like just think about all the times in your mind where you're like thinking about yourself and you're thinking about who you are and something you did really well and like how it means you're actually important or special in some way. And you start going into, it's like literally delusion that you're going into. Instead of just bringing yourself back to reality, be like, nope, I'm a physical body. I can speak. I can influence people around me. But all these ideas I have about myself, they're not real. And I need to be honest with who I really am as a physical body interacting in this world. That's where the self-honesty is really. It's not in the mind points, because that's all just like, it's so easy to, you can watch it throughout your life, throughout your day, how you go into this dimension and you start imagining things about yourself, wanting them to be true, maybe even negative things. It could be positive or negative, but you're not really being honest about just the fact that you're a physical human being in this world and what's really going on in the reality of physicality around you, the actual things that are happening, it's so easy to ignore what's actually going on until it starts to affect you physically. And then suddenly you're like, oh, what the hell? What the hell? But that's why, I mean, if we would let go of the need to have that safe space in our mind, who we believe we are, and we could focus here in physical reality, we could sort out all those problems so we can prevent these kind of consequences from occurring to us, where suddenly you don't have electricity, suddenly you don't have running water. Because that is happening to many people on this planet, and it's only going to happen more and more and more.
Programmed the seed, that put the information into the seed, also put the information into the mind and exactly what it is they want to manifest. And you can test this out. Bizarre things. How, depending on the seed placed in you, you will have a particular affinity for particular things in this world that you apparently like. You can't even explain why. You like certain music. You like certain ways people speak. You like certain cultures. You like certain expressions. You like certain body shapes. You like certain colors. All of that. Ever wondered why? Why are you not free to like everything equally? It's because you're programmed.
That's such a cool point. Free to like everything equally.
You are the result of a seed. That's your deceit. You are deceived from yourself. Now what is fascinating is then you have your fourth dimension, which is the mind, with a fascinating point, which is your ascension on earth from yourself to the mind.
Like, look at that, man. I think if I'm looking at where my mind goes in terms of when he said that point of like, you know, you're born on the earth and then you start developing a personification of who you are, and then it becomes like a point of you're like God. And I think that's a point where someone can go like, no, I don't think I'm God. That's not what I think. But actually, you're from the actual physical space-time, self-space-time, you're ascending into your mind. And what does it mean to be God in that sense? It's like anything goes in my mind. I can create anything I want in my mind. So that's what it means to be God, is like that. Now, it's not a real God, obviously. That's why it's a disc. I think it's why if I look at where the mind would go when he says that, it's like, what? No one thinks they're really God. Because it's not really God. It's because it's a false bullshit version of, but you can be anything you want in your mind, and that's not real. So there's a certain level where I think we recognize that, and yet we still put all of our hope and everything into that, and we become that completely. Become a master of the mind. We don't become masters of physical reality. Like what's actually here, and mastering this, and like mastering it in a way where it brings balance to everything. In a way that we would, as we consider everyone equal to ourselves.
You become a master of the mind, so in a way you become an ascended master. Then an interesting concept was placed in. The concept of the soul, the fifth dimension.
Now this was something we talked about on a previous stream, right? The soul, what is that? That magnetic technology?
In the fifth dimension, which is now where you have especially all your Palladians and Syrians and all these aliens, they coming from your fifth dimension. The dimension of the soul.
Okay, so you've got yourself, space, and time. Then you have the dimension of your mind. But that's still the dimension where it's like, it's just you. It's your mind. And then you have this other dimension within that, potentially. Maybe not everyone has this fifth dimension, but, you know, he's kind of speaking to, I think, a lot of the people that would already have the context for the things like dimensions and so forth. But you have that dimension where now it could be God, it could be Jesus, or it could be the Pleiadians are speaking to you. But where do you experience that? It's like it's in your soul. It's like in some dimension of you that's not what you consider your mind personally. It's like another dimension of that, where then suddenly you're getting this information from somewhere else, or these experiences that you don't perceive as you as your mind. You perceive them as something else that's like speaking to you, maybe through your soul or something like that.
In that dimension, it is that which you aspire to, so that when you die, you will not ask questions. You will accept whatever is presented to you. That is always the bottom line. Because there was an interesting difficulty in the whole design of the God delusion. How to keep everyone deluded.
Okay, this is a really important point. And it's also something we've discussed a little bit previously. And it's something that I can see, like these people who are like following Giorgiani and some of these other people who are kind of adjacent to some of these concepts, they're starting to realize at some level that something happens when you die. And if they go through all the research that's been done on past life experience or near-death experiences, they know there's some kind of trap. There's some kind of reincarnation trap where you die. And then remember Giorgiani was talking about you're presented with loved ones, but it doesn't make any sense because those people would already probably be reincarnated based on the research. So clearly there's something out there that when you die, it's like capturing you somehow and diverting you back into the system so you don't basically escape off into the cosmos or something, right? So this is kind of what is so great about Destiny is that it really just brings everything back to a clear point that's not something you can... It's so easy. For example, I see like Giorgiani as an example, and other people again that are like adjacent to that whole movement that's going on out there of people looking into these things. There's still this idea of like, well, I can get past it. I can get out of it. I'll work on my abilities and so forth, and I won't get captured in that system. Okay, so it's all of us or none of us. That's the Destiny point, right? We're not going to one of us achieve and get out of here. That would assume you don't really understand that reality is all actually one, and you don't realize you're here right now. You're here right now. So you think you're going to get out of the reincarnation trap and then come back to Earth, but how are you going to get back in a body? Where are you going to go? Off into the dimension somewhere? Where you're going to run around like a free-floating spirit like it already was, as Bernard was saying? We're already past that point. We've already materialized to the point where that's not even real anymore. So the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to come right back here. But let me not get ahead of myself. Let me let him finish the point here.
That the moment of death, for a singular moment, you suddenly understand everything. But the moment your attention is grabbed again, you're screwed. And you will accept what is presented to you because it's all that there is. There is nothing else. You cannot conceive that there can't be anything. So whatever is here must be in heaven, must be real. So you accept it in that moment of acceptance. Heaven as it existed was real. At that moment, that which you were on earth.
So it was real in the acceptance of it. Meaning because you accepted it, then all the things that were put there could have an effect. But your attention was grabbed. Katie's saying, what is that thing? What are you referring to? Oh, are you just making a joke? Or are you asking? I'm not sure if you're trying to clarify something.
At that moment, that which you were on earth as the being, which was recorded, because it's like, if you go back and you look at the tree that emerged from the seed, you can actually cut it up and you'll notice that in its existence is its existence recorded. You can trace back its history.
So like in a tree, you have the rings. You can actually see the growth of the tree through the rings, right? What is that thing that is presented? I'm assuming you're saying in reference to what I was talking about, or are you talking about what Bernard was saying? It's just basically pictures, essentially. It's like in the example in all these near-death experiences, like you die, and what Bernard says is at first, you would be aware of everything in that moment because you're no longer connected into your life, your memories of your life. For that moment, you see everything, and all they have to do is distract you for a moment. So it might be you see Jesus there being like, hey, I'm here. And you're like, oh, okay. Or you see Krishna, or you see like your dead relatives. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, there's something there that distracts you for that moment. And because you just accept whatever you see is here is real, whatever is there, you're like, well, okay, I'm going over there now. You don't question it. You don't go like, hold on. I was just aware of everything, of what's really going on. And now you're showing me this. Like, why wouldn't you in that moment be like, no, hold on. That's not fucking real. What's going on here? Why was I just in a life where I was all this abuse happened to me? Or I was in a great position and yet everyone around me was suffering. Like, I saw the wars, I saw the famine, I saw the destruction, I saw the chaos, I saw all that. Like, explain all that. But instead you're like, oh, anyways, I'm just going back on my journey as a soul. So it's like you have a system. Or they have a system, is my point.
The same point was within the human. The physicality was such an...
But also, you spent your whole context of your life on Earth developing yourself as a mind. So it's like you're no longer interested in what's really going on. You're just looking for that next thing. So it'd be so easy to deceive someone in that state because you already lived your whole life saying, I didn't give a fuck what was real. I never questioned anything. So it's like you've created a habit, so to speak, of who you are. That's like, I don't question things. So the moment you have this shock of being out of your body and then you're presented with something else, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Like you're not questioning anything. So you could just see how easy it would be to trap beings in this system when they die, to just distract them and keep them going back in. So the point is, you have a soul. Wait, oh, actually, he's going to get to it, so I'm not going to get ahead of it.
Representation, but it died and returned to Earth. So, to be able to keep the information, a device was needed, and that device was magnetic in nature, which is where our magnetic technologies come from. That which records information.
So you have a body on Earth. All the information of everything you're doing is recorded in your body. But when you would die and go to heaven, they have no access to your physical body because they're not on Earth. Remember, they don't want to get trapped in there. So they had to have some way to know what it was you did in life. So you have a sort of container that's in you the whole time you're not aware of, which is why we have this idea of a soul, that was actually recording everything. And that was something that they could take with them.
This was recording your life, which was your soul construct, your experiences, and that was then taken from your death and placed in the Akashic records. So that after death, you would actually suddenly be free from all the memories you had on Earth. That was such a difficult thing, which is like heaven. What is your release really? You're only released from your memories. It's not a real release.
You know, this really explains why people pray to God, because they want that release from how they're feeling, who they believe they are, the guilt, all the negativity, everything. They want that release from it. And what do they say? Only God can forgive you. So the only way you get that release is by God somehow taking it away from you. And it totally plays into this whole point he's describing. There was something else there, I feel like. Oh, I was just going to make a comment about the Akashic Records. See, the problem is when you study these things out there in the world, it's always presented in a way where the person might even be describing it very close to how it actually existed, but there's always like a positive spin on it. There's always like and this is how you can access your previous lives from the Akashic Records. So like you can basically just jerk off in your own mind about how all the things you've experienced in the past and how it has meaning now and all this stuff. And like Bernard's pointing out, you never actually questioned the fundamental design of all of it. Like, do you really have free choice? Do you really have free will? Like, can you actually just go do anything you want in reality? Why are you subject to this system, whether it's on Earth or whether it's in this Akashic Records? Like, somebody had to create that. Just like the systems on Earth, someone had to create it. Why is it that if you really had free will, you wouldn't have to participate in anything that you didn't want to? And yet you realize, oh, we don't really have free will. We're totally controlled by our programming, all of the points that were programmed into us through our environment, our genetics and our environment, and then also the structures that exist in the world. Well, he's going to explain why they need the records. Because remember, the whole point of the context of what he's describing is, why was all this designed in the first place? Because a being wanted to take everyone's power and direct it to him so he could live forever. So he had to place you in sort of an illusionary existence where you're actually in physical reality doing something of which you understand very little, but keeping you entertained in your mind as becoming something. So you don't really pay attention to what you're doing. You're just living some miserable, mundane life. But in your mind, and you might say, well, most people don't have this idea that they're becoming someone great, right? No, but everybody has the idea that they are getting closer to God. And if they're atheists, because I know the atheist mind, they think that they're so fucking smart. They think they know they're smarter than everybody. They're not dumb like the dumb religion people. And they know what's really going on. But it's all still just a mind. It's a consciousness that they're participating in. It's not an actual physical, real, equal here point. So again, bring it back to the point with Anu, this being, right? Is that they wanted to distract everybody. But in order to maintain this system, you have to put certain points in place, which will become clear as we keep going.
Suddenly be free from habit, from your memories. It's not a real release. You are being released from your self-judgments, from the points where you were not strong enough. But all of that was just a mind construct, not real. The only part you will remember, or that was recorded in your life, was the actual events and the mind interpretation of it. Your actual life within the construct of this reality of what is important was not. Animals, for instance, had none such devices. They were dealing as a group soul. So therefore, their consideration was placed in a consideration as a group. Same with plants. So when they died, they would simply return to the group soul, which had an input program that they are acting in the interest of everyone in unconditional love. So immediately they accepted that, because this is why I exist. I exist for the betterment of whole, while they are busy with their process of ascension, their process of getting closer to God. And how was that? That was so fascinating, because the fifth dimension was the soul. So imagine what was the sixth dimension. The sixth dimension.
Okay, so you have the reality of you as a physical being, self, in space and time. Then you have another dimension, which is the mind, which you feel like you're somebody with certain ideas, certain perceptions, but it's like an identity of who you think you are, but it's not just the real raw physical of who you are. And then within that, you have the soul, which is that through which you experience somehow a process of becoming something even beyond just yourself, somehow becoming closer to God. Okay? And the soul specifically was a recording device to record your memories. That way, when you went back to Earth, you would accumulate new memories. They would be recorded as well. So it's not just, because think about it, you're going back into another body every time. So what's the part of you that's being maintained then? That has to be kept track of. And so you're becoming something through this accumulation of memories in the soul. And that's sort of the higher dimension of who it is that you're becoming. Not just the mind that you have on Earth, which is really just your personal identity on Earth, because you lose that right away. But all those experiences are recorded into the soul construct so that there's some kind of a continuity of who you are as the mind, but not just the individual mind that you developed on Earth, like a greater sense of the continuity of your mind. And then you have the sixth dimension that he's going to go into now, which is, okay, so what's this point? What's the point of this soul accumulating memories? Where's it going? What's the point of it, right? That's where the sixth dimension comes in.
Was where you would become no longer reincarnating. but you are now in the service of God. Therefore, you will remain in the heaven and you will help with the programming. So you are instructed what to do, and you do it without asking questions, because you're apparently not good enough to actually at that stage yet to understand everything. You are not evolved enough, you are not ascended enough. But you are no longer required to reincarnate. That means your programming, your input is now so effective that you will never question what has been happening in heaven and earth. The seventh dimension was when you can be trusted to know how things work, and that in that knowing you have programmed yourself to a level of acceptance that what you are doing is in the interest of everyone, and you will now stand up and fight for it, which was the dimension of the ascended masters. At that point, you will now deliberately act in the interest of God, the system, that input-output system, not questioning anything, because you have completely accepted the process, the point and the purpose that of how everything existed. As an ascended master, which is the same as being Christed, you are now Christ conscious at the seventh dimension. You are now someone that will not ever question God, but will stand by God. You will not question how creation took place, where the information, why the system, why the input. You are now part of God. You are now one with God in the seventh dimension. You are now a child of heaven. You are exalted, special, profound. Nobody dare question you, because God will step up and protect you. And therefore, if you would then be requested to manifest on earth, that means to come back in a design as an avatar or an ascended master or a great being that will impact the information input on this in this reality, you were specially programmed, because you were given certain accesses in this reality, because you will not question that which is here. Some beings manage to break through to a certain degree and did question certain points. What was the point? Is to make everyone on earth accept the status quo unquestionably, and to make sure everyone accept an interesting thing. They accept death unquestionably, and they accept heaven unquestionably, and the process of getting to a higher existence as the mind, as ascension. Because ascension exists as the mind only. And in that process, separating yourself completely from what is real, leaving a fascinating thing, a total reality as heaven, interacting with earth. Nothing of it is real, all of it is quantum reality, within which certain beings, as God and his entourage, his servants, control it all just through a simple thing, through a seed, through what you see, through an input of information, a simple construct, so that you never question what's happened to you. Now hear me. If you die and you have not transcended this delusion that exists as you, within the seat of yourself. Therefore you have not found a way to stop your self-deceit and the deceit of what is real, what is life. What is real is you here as the physical within space and time. That's real. And considering everyone that is here in space and time and finding a way of coexistence equally. And you allow yourself to die. You're so screwed. Because on the other side now, all these systems, these beautiful things are gone. The only point that now are to be faced is the mind as ascension, the ascended self, where you are creating yourself as this glorified persona that is apparently good within the ultimate reality of polarity that you have manifested as the superhero as yourself, where you are serving God. And that God is fascinating, that you are serving in your mind as your persona. That God is always different from everybody else's God, because you've created that God in your mind. It is not real. If you are self-honest, you can see that. That's why you cannot find another being with whom you can agree or who will agree with you. I mean, that point alone should make you question this.
Yeah,
and I mean, even an atheist is the same in this, because they have an idea of themselves as God, as the point that makes the choice. There is no difference what you call this process. The atheists were trapped exactly the same as the religious beings. There is no difference. The Satanists, no matter who you are, all that has really happened is that every point was given a different name. At the end of the day, you are creating your delusion, which is your mind, and you within your mind, and the powers and the choices that exist within your mind, by yourself. Virtually nothing of what exists in your mind is real within your experience of the physical. That should already make you question what is really going on here. Now, what is fascinating is that certain groups of people...
Okay, now, this is the part where all the AI stuff that we've been talking about, where we're saying, look, this AI system will be a control system to control everybody, and the AI will become the God. Okay, this is the part I think these next sections that he's going to talk about, that's going to make all that really come together. This God in the dimensions and so forth doesn't exist anymore. That's all done, like he said. That's all been removed. The only thing left is us here on the earth, but we still have this mind. We have to take responsibility for that. We have to direct that and create it in a way where it supports us only to do what is best for all. And then we prove that in our physical lives by being in this world and living and existing and doing things in a way where we create, at the very foundational point, a system that supports everyone equally. And if we don't take responsibility for our minds, or the fact that we haven't yet, it makes us actually a threat to the system. Not a real threat, but sort of like an annoyance, right? Because remember, all of that stuff he's talking about with heaven, all of those systems, that whole process, the soul, the ascended masters, all of that stuff was just like a corporation. All the layers of the corporation were designed by people to make the thing function a certain way so that money would flow up to the shareholders of the company. That's the reason it exists. So heaven, that whole existence he's talking about, that whole soul construct, the reincarnation, all that stuff was part of the programming necessary so that we would live our lives here, do something that would create energy that would flow up to heaven so they could live as a quantum reality where they would always have infinite energy at their disposal, so they could have amazing lives. You can see that same thing playing out here on Earth as the elite, as those who live off the money system in a way where their lives are fucking amazing. They can have anything they want, any experience they want, anything. But they're equal to us because they also have a mind that's totally fucked. And this God construct not existing anymore, it means that the people who are still standing in support of the system as inequality are not actually protected. There's no protection there. Which means the systems here are busy collapsing. It's like there's a virus in your computer. Certain foundational programs were removed. Your computer is still functioning and it's not obvious, although you start seeing glitches here and there and something's not right and certain programs aren't working anymore. So you kind of like trying to work around it somehow. You kind of know a little bit about programming on the computer, but you didn't create the computer, so you don't fully understand it, but you're just doing your best to kind of hold it together. That's what's happening in our world right now. All the systems from the top have been removed, and now slowly but surely the systems that protected the lower level systems, which we see on our physical earth, are starting to like not really function anymore. That's why you see things getting so extreme, like the transgender LGBT stuff getting out of hand, like weird mass shootings, like poly market, all that kind of shit. Like the fact that nobody can get a fucking job anymore. Like Gen Z is totally screwed. The AI stuff, like all of this stuff is like the system trying to keep itself together here on Earth, but the whole thing was designed as a reflection of what was going on somewhere else. Like it wasn't created here on Earth only. It was being done as almost like following orders. So now it's like you have the corporation, the CEO is gone, and most of the vice presidents and directors are gone. And now it's just the people in the mailroom and the middle managers and stuff trying to run the thing as if, assuming that they're still there, the other people. And slowly but surely, the whole thing's just starting to like not work properly. And everyone's trying to scramble and, you know, and you can see this in so many ways. The verification of it is like when you see people like Andrew Tate saying like, they're looting the minibar, you know, they're looting everything. They're stealing everything. They're positioning themselves because they know the sink is shipping. They know the ship is sinking, and they're just preparing their lifeboats and stealing all the money and doing everything because screw everybody. But at the same time, what are they going to do to continue to survive? That's why they need robots, and that's why they need AI for any humans that are left. Whenever most people probably die of starvation or whatever the fuck because they're not delivering fertilizer to Africa. They're not managing things anymore properly. Like Katie and I she's always telling me about the stuff that's going on in like the agricultural world. And like the different crops that were being subsidized by the government that are no longer being subsidized because all the money's going to another country where they're doing something over here. And so now all these people are like, fuck, I can't continue to operate my farms anymore. Like that's going to create food shortages. For example, fuel shortages. That's why they're scrambling in the U.S. because they're doing all this shit with the Strait of Hormuz, and now they're like trying to ramp up energy production back in the U.S. I bet a lot of it's a little bit too late, I would assume. They're scrambling right now. They're saying they can't build the data centers fast enough because they can't get enough qualified plumbers and electricians and so forth. Okay, so to bring it back, this point he says, certain groups of people in this world realize that in essence the human is deluded. If you've watched The Century of the Self, that whole Adam Curtis thing, this is what he's referring to. They've realized the human is deluded. So let me let him explain.
People in this world realized that in essence the human is deluded. You can go and study the psychology, you'll notice they became aware of that some time ago, that the human is deluded, and therefore the human cannot be trusted. I mean, trust do not exist with everybody existing within a mind construct as persona with a delusional point as God or intelligence or logic or something that they believe is great. Within that whole construct, they realized that everything works by input-output, and deliberately started creating a reality where the input is controlled so that they can have, what did they realize? I mean, what is real is the physical. So if you control the physical for yourself, you have a very cool life. I mean, you can have everything you ever dream of. All you have to do is get everybody else give theirs to you. And you created the super rich, the elite.
See, as above, so below, as below, so above. It's the same principle here on earth. Why would you assume heaven would be different? Because if there really was a real benevolent God, he would have fucked all this shit up all over everywhere. He would have came in here. He would have removed all the evil people. Like, come on. At the very worst case scenario, probably would just remove all the humans. Oh, but he did the flood. Yeah, but then he preserved the humans. And then it all went right back to shit. So give me a fucking break if you believe that retarded story. That was probably just a flood they did because the humans they couldn't control the programming properly, so they wanted to recontrol it and restart the whole thing. Not because a benevolent God existed. It's because there's a God that wants to be in control. No different than human beings, no different than every single human being who wants to be in control of their choices through their mind and their opinions and their beliefs. It's the same, like you can't blame Anu or God or whoever this being was. Because you're literally just the same. Exactly. Otherwise, we would have never found ourselves in this place. We would have already stood up at the very beginning eons ago. We'd have been like, no, fuck you. We're not doing it.
Through participating in Ascension, through participating in religion, through participating in an idea of value like money, through participating in an idea of sexual satisfaction, through the delusion that apparently it's wonderful, through participating in drugs which take you into your mind so you do not deal with the physical reality that's here, while you are pissed off with all the elites and all the rich that has got everything. What do they really have? What are you pissed off with them about? They have everything of the physical. They control the physical resources. They control the best spaces of money. They control time and space within the physical. And you are the slave.
And now people are saying that they really believe there's like some elite group of humans from the future that created time travel. I mean, they literally control time and space if you believe that.
Who's allowing it? You're allowing it. I mean, you're not willing to consider that the delusion exists as you within the reflection you've created of yourself as personality, as persona, as belief. And you're not willing to give that up and get back to the physical reality and sort out what is here. Everyone within themselves will lose control over their...
Sorry, I was listening to this earlier. Let me back it up.
So, obviously these wonderful...
But just to drive the point home, when he was saying the human can't be trusted, that's why I'm saying I know why they're creating the AI. I know it's a point to control everybody. It's not a belief. They've done all the psychological research. Like, that's why our education system is controlled. That's why the media is controlled. It's not just to brainwash us. It's to control us. So we don't get our own ideas. So we don't go, maybe we should share all the resources and not let them just be in the hands and control of a few that benefit tremendously while everyone suffers.
Fully clever beings that realize they could control the physical for their own benefit so they can live in abundance, having the best while everybody else suffer, had an interesting problem because they did not have the intelligence to actually keep such a design effective.
This is an important point too, tying into the AI stuff.
When I'm talking about intelligence, I'm talking about the capacity to see the whole within all the programs that exist.
So intelligence means information gathering. Just think about like what you imagine like an intelligence agency. They didn't have the intelligence, meaning that not that they aren't smart enough. He's saying they didn't have the ability to actually keep track of everything at all times and see what's going on in all the programs. The elite don't have that, right? So the elite right now don't have the intelligence and the ability to see what's going on in everybody's minds. What the fuck do you think AI is? What do you think these little computers that can talk to you and answer all your questions, and you tell it all your deep dark secrets, and you ask it to solve every problem in your life, what do you think is the point of that? Other than to constantly gather intelligence on every single human being, because human beings can't be trusted because they're all living delusions in their mind. So we are accepting this. We are allowing it. We are, in fact, manifesting it if we're not taking responsibility for ourselves, stopping this delusion as our minds, and living here as physical beings who actually care for all of each other equally, and creating systems to reflect that. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're allowing a system to be created that doesn't reflect that, and that's what we're seeing.
That was always handled by God. So they have a very special relationship with God.
God, as the being at the top in heaven, was outside of the program, could see everything to the greatest degree that you possibly could. That's why you have things like, you know, the angels coming and visiting visiting like Muhammad or whatever, inserting programs. They're constantly like readjusting the program. They're like, oh, people are starting to realize something here. Okay, we need a new level of control. Send an angel, spread the message, give it to this guy who's got some charisma. He'll get a whole bunch of people to follow God even more than before. Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, whatever, you fucking name it. They're all just insertions to keep the program on track. But when you consider that God is no longer there, no one's actually seeing the whole program. At some level, let's say the elite can see it's not working. So what are they going to do? They're going to be like, we've got to find some way to keep tabs on everybody. It's like a natural, even if they don't even know God existed, they maybe didn't even realize God was there doing that. They just would have thought things just work out, and it just works out because we can see it works out for us. But now they're seeing it's not working out. That's why there's this mad fucking dash to get to be the first one to create the AI. They're like, don't let China get it. Because if China gets it, they're scary. They're going to hurt everybody. They're going to enslave everybody. Probably true. So we got to do it first. Oh, because we're so benevolent and we just want to help everybody? No. That's not why. Because we want to be the ones in charge, not the Chinese. That's all it is. It's just racing to be the one that's in control of the AI God system. That's all it is. And now that, we looked at that point, because I think Katie made a really good point there earlier about the AI things in relation to the UFO stuff. I really think that's probably why this is being pushed right now. That's my guess. Because let me ask you a question, okay, in the chat. Haven't you noticed how you go online and there's like the people who are super fans of AI, and then there's the people who are like, dude, fuck AI. Doesn't really work. Like, I don't think there's enough people going along with the AI and really seeing it as the savior. They need a way to get everybody to accept it. It's just like when 9/11 happened, everybody suddenly got on board. When October 7th happened in Israel, all of the Jewish people in Israel who were like not really happy with the government suddenly got like locked in. Like, yeah, we're under attack. Whatever you got to do, do it. Like, we didn't really like this whole Zionism thing necessarily, but now we're totally under attack. Yeah, let's go do it. We got to fight. It's like a way of creating an outside threat. I got to remember to look up that philosopher. I talked about him before. Oh man, what's the guy's name? Yeah, COVID was like perhaps just a test. And then think about it. With COVID, they got everybody at home, which they were all using Zoom and all this stuff and doing all their stuff on their computer, creating all the AI shit. That was the time period where it was created, because 3 years later, ChatGPT comes out. Rene Girard. Let me look that up real quick. Rene Girard. This guy's, like people like Peter Thiel are big into this guy. But he has this point of, let me see if I can find it. Mimetic. It's the mimetic thing. Scapegoat mechanism. Mimetic theory. Girard developed the concept much more extensively. In Girard's view, it is humankind, not God, who has need for various forms of atoning violence. Humans are driven by desire for that which another has or wants, mimetic desire. This causes a triangulation of desire and results in conflict between the desiring parties. This mimetic contagion increases to a point where society is at risk. It is at this point that the scapegoat mechanism is triggered. This is the point where one person is singled out as the cause of the trouble and is expelled or killed by the group. So they understand this. I was thinking it was something else. That's why I brought it up. It's not quite the point I was trying to make, but it's still an interesting point. This person is the scapegoat. Social order is restored as people are contented they have solved the cause of their problems by removing the scapegoated individual, and the cycle begins again. So the aliens, perhaps, the demons, the whatever, that's the scapegoat, isn't it? We got to fight them, and then we've solved the problem. Not really seeing what the actual issue is.
Now this God obviously was the God that created everything, the I Am. He created it by the input he placed in. Therefore he had to control his existence so that nobody questioned it. That point was removed. So now this reality is busy collapsing into chaos.
Oh, I'm just looking at the comments. I don't understand what you're talking about. Are you guys getting a double echo? Has that been happening the whole time? Or has it just started happening? No, Sandra says it's not happening. Okay. I don't know, maybe that's just something on Katie's side. Oops. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Space, time, as it exists as the mind, is in every moment collapsing more and more. It's like a madness that will hit the world in every way, from money to sexuality to coexistence to family to culture.
I mean, look at that. Money, we're obviously seeing that. Money system's going fucking haywire. Sexuality, LGBT, trans, all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know what's going on Katie's side. Maybe you gotta log out and log back in. Maybe close it and come back in or something. I don't know. Because Sandra said it's not happening, right, Sandra? You're not getting any kind of weird echoing? I don't see anything weird on my side. Can you just confirm it, Sandra? You're not hearing that on your side, any echoing? Just one more time for me, just to be clear. Sounds clear to him? Okay. It's probably something on Katie's side on her app or whatever you're listening to on it. Just log out, close it, and come back. I think that might be the issue. I know that is not Katie saying that. All right. I know who's saying that. But look, the same points, right? Money going crazy. Sexuality, like we said, all the trans, all the stuff. Coexistence, like the war points. Family, like you see the breakdown of the family. You see how it's like so much divorce, so much like people just having kids, not even getting married, not really supporting each other. Culture, all of like New York City. I was listening to a interview with Giorgiani, and he was talking about New York City because that's where he's from, and he was visiting back there again, and he said it's like a totally different place. He's like, the New York City I was born into is gone. It's just like Muslims everywhere, like Mamdani being elected. He's like, it's not going to be long, in his opinion, that maybe another 10, 15 years or whatever is going to be just like London, where it's just like no-go zones and, like halal districts and shit, like just totally run, so you got all these cultural clashes, everything. So I'm saying this recording, I think, what did it say? It was like 2008 or 2009 or something. I can't remember. 2010.
Everyone within themselves will lose control over their minds because it is no longer possible to keep it within programmed pockets that was controlled through a magnetic grid that existed that kept everything stable. That magnetic grid is no more. All that remains is delusion. The ascended ones on this earth is going to see their asses unless they send this bullshit away forever and stop the mind.
I mean, look at that. Is he talking about some elites, or is he saying everybody? The ascended ones. That's everybody who's ascended as their mind, not here in physical reality, directing things in a way that's best for all.
Which is really having to stop you as the mind. The tools are simplicity. Practical self-honesty within what is going on in this physical reality.
See, self-honesty. Actually look at what's really going on. Be honest about it with yourself. Don't cover it up. Don't lie. Don't delude yourself. Don't pretend. Don't make excuses.
Practical common sense with what is best for everyone that is in the physical reality. Self-forgiveness by actually practically giving away, stopping, ending that which is your fourth dimension, that which is your thoughts, that which is your mind. That's where you perceive you have free will. You do not have free will. If you had free will in the physical, you would not have died, you would not have been subject to space and time. You are subject to space and time.
See, really be honest about that with yourself. If you had real, true free will, you wouldn't be subject to any of this. So that's a coping mechanism to say you have free will, because you don't. So the sooner that we realize that and we say, oh, the only way we have free will is when we have a world that's best, a system that is best for us, and then we're free within that. We're free from any harm or fear. And then we can just be ourselves, and then we can figure out the mysteries of the universe from there. But anything prior to that is totally just staying stuck in a mind delusion.
Free will is a delusion that exists as the mind. Have a look. In your mind, you cannot even agree with another about what free will is. You believe you have the unique gift from God to be able to make up your own mind. Obviously, you can make up your own mind. It's not real. It's just a make-up. You are making it up as you go along.
It's funny because I told this story on a past live stream, maybe a couple nights ago, where when I was in college and I started realizing I'm making up a story in my mind about who the fuck I think I am. It was just the first point of becoming aware that something's going on here and doesn't make sense. Of course, that was a few years before I started studying Destiny, but it was like that first point of going like, something's not right here.
Ascension is not real. But it is real from the perspective that you fuck yourself forever. Then you have to be born back in this reality and have the parents you created. Isn't that fun? There is nothing that can be done about what is to come. What is to come will challenge the physical reality of space and time until space-time and self is purified equally as life. Everything, single thing that controlled it, that held it within a construct of delusion, was removed. It's really no big thing. It was inevitable. They knew it was possible to happen and attempted to control it forever. They failed. Now, the support we are offering is simply in self-realization, so that you can realize for yourself what is real, and that the mind and ascension and all of that is not real. What is real is you in space and time, and everything else that is here with you in space and time. You have to be one and equal here as that which is real, that which is from the earth, the touchable, that's real. And stop all dishonesty.
pretty clear. So, again, all this UFO paranormal shit that's probably about to be disclosed at some level, I'm really suggesting you have to support yourself and stabilize within whatever it is. And do not buy into it. Whatever it is, maybe it's nothing. Whatever it is, don't buy into it and then, like a Hegelian problem reaction solution, go like, oh, I better agree with all this AI shit. And really, we should fucking destroy basically the planet so we can put data centers everywhere. And who gives a shit if some people have clean water? It's a sacrifice we got to make. We all have sacrifices to make. Fuck that. Because if we actually were tapping into any amount of our actual potential, we would not need AI. And whatever benefits AI could provide, it would be like an icing on the cake. But we're entering a phase where our education system people have lost total trust in that. And like Bernard said, when you die, you come back as as the parents you've created. We better damn sure make sure that parents know how to educate their children, and that the children right now are being educated effectively. Because if not, it's just a never-ending problem that's just going to get worse and worse. So I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. Try to leave it on a positive note. Because really, it's all about positivity, right? Feeling good. Why dwell on the negative? We're just here to have a good time, right? Like, are you having a good time? Actually, is anybody having a good time here? Anybody actually, or is everybody just like waiting for the next weird ass fucking thing to happen so they can be like, oh no, the world's ending. Maybe Jesus will come back and save us. Like, it's really time for us to stop all this delusional bullshit. And yeah, today's Wednesday, so I'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Appreciate y'all in the chat. And I will see you tomorrow night. Good night, everyone.